Parents, family, faculty, administrators, Board of Education, and guests for being here today to celebrate the class of 2023. I'm so honored to have received the opportunity to speak to you all. I would make a joke about writing this the night before, but the truth is I started this in November. Because who can worry about applying to college when they have a graduation speech to give in June? Most of you know me as an artist, so I will begin exactly how you'd expect me to begin. Van Gogh was one of my favorite artists. He is the epitome of artistic talent. But this talent came at the cost of a lonely life. Despite his social isolation, in an 1888 letter to his brother, Van Gogh writes, "I feel that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people." Now, when I first read this, I thought, he must have written this around the time when he cut off his ear and was painting swirls in the sky. It didn't make much sense. But then I read it again, and I understood that his sentiment suggests we can look at our connection to others as a form of art. After all, it is an artist's job to connect with the world around them, to observe it, empathize with it, and recreate it. And just like every other form of art, it is something we need to practice, to experiment with, and seek to perfect. It is difficult to put to words how grateful I am to have grown up with this group of people to my left. When I reflect on my 13 years at the Bronxville school, there have always been these specks of time, in between the studying and the test taking, where I find myself completely present and appreciative of the people around me. I think it's these moments I'll remember the most. And they're likely why, in every classroom activity I remember, I can't help but see the familiar faces of my classmates sitting next to me. Why, in every game or match I played, I think of the conversations shared on the sidelines. And why, in every field trip, orchestra concert, assembly, and lecture, I can recall the specific group of people I shared these moments with. I think that's true for a lot of us. Our brain's eternal protection of these memories tells us this is what's most important. It's the people. I would like to share a few simple lessons I have found to be helpful in effectively connecting with others. Number one, don't underestimate the power of a good compliment. As children, we are often reminded how strong an effect our words can have on another person. But the examples of this truth we usually hear show how hateful words can be destructive. We often forget the flip side, how kind words can be miraculously uplifting. And these words don't have to come in the form of a beautifully written letter of recommendation, edited by Mr. Cross. They can be as simple as a passing remark, a line of encouragement, or an observation, noting something that otherwise goes unnoticed. Mark Twain candidly writes, "I can live for 2 months on a good compliment." Number two, listen to understand rather than to respond. Everyone here knows someone in their life who is an expert listener. I know all you parents immediately thought of your 18-year-old kid when you heard the words expert listener. Based on that reaction, maybe not. This is someone you can talk to for an hour and have full confidence they are taking in every word. That person, if I were to guess, has engaged with you in some of the most profound and personal conversations of your life. Not because they know you the best or because they know exactly what to say, but because they're simply able to listen better than anyone else. Number three, trust that you are better than no one, and no one is better than you. There is a viral video you may have seen that captures a conversation on the subway between an elderly lady and a younger man that sits beside her. The younger man puts out his hand and introduces himself, saying, "My name's Jay, what's your name?" She responds, "Ellen, what do you do?" He says, "I make music." And they go on to discuss where he's headed and his plans later that day. A simple yet refreshingly pleasant conversation amidst a chaotic subway car. As he gets up to leave, The lady asks, "Say your name again, just so I get it." He said, Jay-Z. Had this woman known she was sitting next to one of the greatest rappers of all time, she might not have been so quick to engage in such a casual conversation. And had Jay-Z thought of himself as too good to be talking to an old stranger, he wouldn't have had the pleasure of meeting Ellen. For those like Mr. Halling and Ms. Kim who appreciate data and research, I have a study for you. In hopes of answering the age-old question, what makes for a happy life, scientists in 1938 tracked the health and broader lives of 264 Harvard sophomores for nearly 80 years, making it the longest study on happiness ever conducted. During this time, researchers collected data on the subject's physical and mental health for medical records, in-person interviews, and hundreds of questionnaires. The conclusion reached: close relationships are what keep people happy. The data revealed a strong correlation between flourishing lives and relationships with family, friends, and community. Psychiatrist George Valiant explained, when the study began, nobody cared about empathy or attachment, but the key to healthy aging is relationships, relationships, relationships. So, as you begin your unique journeys outside of Bronxville, I encourage you all to seek out deeply personal interactions, fueled by meaningful compliments, empathetic listening, and a balance of confidence and humility. The kind of interactions you can look back on years later and remember so vividly, you can sketch a portrait of the face sitting beside you. In the words of the immortal Mr. Rogers, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of. There is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. I wish you all the courage to offer the best part of yourself to whomever you'll meet, and the openness to receive a piece of everyone in return. Thank you.